response to the Thinking Atheist, Islam and Women, which is one of their recent podcasts. I enjoyed it a lot. It was quite interesting, very informative. I just wanted to clear up a bit of a misconception, because Seth mentioned in the podcast something about Meg arguing with atheists about Islam on the Thinking Atheist Facebook page. I thought I should just clear up a bit of confusion here, because I am one of the atheists who has argued with Meg about Islam on the Thinking Atheist Facebook page. When she and I locked horns, it was a discussion based on her sharing a Pat Condell video, which wasn't, I don't think, as I remember, to do with a video that had anything directly to do with Islam. It shouldn't surprise anyone that I'm really not a fan of Pat Condell. I find him to be quite facile, to be honest. Even before he started pledging support for parties like the UKIP, which I should come to later, I didn't really particularly find any of his videos very engaging. He doesn't really seem to be communicating with anyone. He just seems to be talking at his camera. He doesn't interact with anyone in his comment section. He just seems to be spieling this bile that he feels toward religion and certain other things, and just at the world, really. He doesn't seem to be communicating with anyone. But I was quite bothered that the Thinking Atheist, anyone from the Thinking Atheist, thinks sharing Pat Condell videos is a good idea. I think the video in question was one on secularism, which I find ridiculously ironic, because Pat Condell clearly does not support secularism. He voted for the UKIP. Worse than that, he advocated that everyone else should. The UKIP is not a secular party. Most notably, they're opposed to same-sex marriage. A bit of news: in my local area, near the city where I live, the UKIP candidate was actually given the boot recently because he supported same-sex marriage. So, you know, it's not just a casual policy they have, it's a very strict policy. So Pat Condell basically has decided to put, because he's opposed to Islamic immigration, he's put that, his own jingoism, which is what this is, has very little to do with religion, he's put his own jingoism ahead of the rights of gay people, which I think is appalling. Now, Pat Condell in the past as well has described the entire Saudi population as being mentally ill, which is an appalling thing to say, for the reason that mental illness is a real thing. It isn't just a word you can play it fast and loose with. It has a meaning, and it doesn't. You can't just say the entire population of a country happens to suffer from it. And among other things, he opposed the Ground Zero Mosque, which belongs very much in inverted commas, because, as we all know, the Ground Zero Mosque was not at Ground Zero, and nor is it really a mosque. It's an Islamic cultural centre. But even if it were a mosque, it really wouldn't make any difference. It's perfectly within the confines of the law for a bunch of Muslims to buy some land and build a mosque on it. It's their constitutional right to do that. So when he's opposing this Ground Zero Mosque, if that's what he insists on calling it, he's opposing the constitutional rights of Muslims, which is pretty atrocious. I mean, you're talking about human beings here, you have to remember, first and foremost. However vile what someone's beliefs may or may not be, you're talking about human beings. Even then, you have to understand the people behind this Islamic cultural centre were very difficult, from a very different cloth of the Islamic faith to the likes of Osama bin Laden and such people who were involved, of course, in the 9/11 hijackings. So there isn't really any particular reason to connect this Islamic Cultural Centre to 9/11, and of course it's not at Ground Zero. There are already mosques that were closer to Ground Zero than this Islamic Cultural Centre. So with a few things like that sorted, I mean, that's just putting Pat Condell into context here. It's not Islam it's not as if opposition to Islam that's the problem. He's talking about Islamic immigration. He's taking people's human rights away. Immigration is quite a specific thing, whereas religion overall is scripture. So when you say, we don't, we shouldn't stick up for Islam. Well, this is human rights. When we talk about immigration, we talk about people's human rights, not about their religious rights. There's a slight difference. But basically, the conversation I had with Meg, just getting myself back on track here, was, as I said, because of all these various reasons, it doesn't really speak very well of the Thinking Atheist to post Pat Condell's material. And I was a bit shocked by some of her responses. I mean, one of the things she said was, the UKIP isn't the BNP, quit pretending it is. And which I never had said, I don't think I even need to say things like that. The UKIP do a good enough job of looking bad on their own. I don't think anyone needs to strawman them as the BNP. But the other point was, she said, there's nothing wrong with wanting the country you live in to stay as it is. Wanting things to stay, wanting things not to change. Which I think is amazing for someone from the Thinking Atheist to say that. What is the Thinking Atheist doing if not trying to change society? I mean, does Seth Andrews just go to all these conventions in America and give all these talks trying to turn people away from religion? What is that if not trying to change the status quo in your country? I mean, that's just ridiculous to say, there's nothing wrong, we want to keep things the same. This is just a very strange form of cultural conservatism, which, okay, if you're some sort of Daily Mail reader, then I suppose that's what you're going to believe, but when you're part of a community which is actively trying to change society, I just find comments like that very strange. So I just wanted to clear that up, really. The argument for me is not that I'm supporting Islam. I mean, this is just me. I don't know what other atheists have argued with Meg about this before, but it's not support of Islam. It's just trying to keep things in the correct perspective, trying to make sure we actually know what's being talked about. Pat Condell, when he uses the word Muslim, he's using it synonymously with the word brown people, or brown person, I should say. That's all he means. He's obsessed with this idea of Islamic immigration, or that Sharia law is going to be introduced in this country, which, by the way, it's just not going to happen. It's barely even a concern worth addressing, the idea that Sharia law is going to become a reality in the United Kingdom. I really doubt it would ever become a reality, even less likely to become a reality in America, as far as I'm aware. By all means, correct me if I'm wrong, with facts, please, not with foaming at the mouth, anyone. So I just wanted to clear that up, because I just want to make it clear that when we're talking about immigration, we're not Islamic immigration, we're talking about the cultural side of Islam. Now, we know that there's a common thing you hear from atheists, which they say, Islam isn't a race. Islam isn't a race. That's sort of true, but the word race doesn't really have a proper specific definition. It's used quite loosely. It's not used at all in taxonomy. Sometimes we use the word race synonymously with species, we'll say like the human race, but we also use it to describe, say, the white race or the black race or whatever. So we're obviously not talking, it's not just a synonym for species. Now, when you're opposing Islamic immigration it's pretty much in its entirety as the Pat Condell approach, you are talking about it on a cultural level, not specifically on a theological level. So cultural, that does kind of come under the racial category. Also, I mean, another point that seems to have been made in this podcast is that it's a common myth that most Muslims are Arabic, when in fact they're not. Well, okay, but when you're looking at immigration, again, you need to look at how many immigrants are of that certain race, and then ask yourself, are the people who are opposing this immigration doing so quite possibly on the grounds of race? So that's just what I wanted to make there. It's not in any way arguing about Islam, is not necessarily support of Islam. It's trying to make sure people understand exactly the subject at hand. And I don't think, even if Pat Condell hadn't supported the UKIP or whatever, I really don't think it's a good idea to share his videos. I don't think it's a good idea to tether yourself in any way to someone like Pat Condell. It's just doing a lot more harm than good. Some people say as well, Pat Condell, he's made, I don't agree with him about this or this, but he's made some good points. And you think, well, if he has made any good points, quite frankly, he doesn't make them any better than anyone else has. In some cases, the people who've made exactly the same points he's made just as well, if not better. So really, I don't really think that's a good enough reason to splatter cat on L stuff around the internet. So that's just a little bit of a response there to try and clear up a misunderstanding. I hope this is taken, in the unlikely event anyone bothers watching it, I hope this is taken as it's intended to be, as obviously as a criticism, but as hopefully a constructive one. So still quite a big fan of the podcast. I've enjoyed most of the editions I've heard, so I just really wanted to clear that up, because it was just something that's been bothering me a bit, and like I say, if anyone else has any thoughts on this, if they want to chip them in, I think that'd be a good idea. Okay, goodbye.